Next is the revenue can be used for agricultural and industrial sector. The revenue which is generated by the government through various sources can also be used by the government for the development of agricultural and industrial sectors in the economy. It can be helpful in providing agricultural equipments to the farmers, better seeds, better fertilizers to the farmer at less prices. It can also help the industrial sector with the help of taxation and borrowing. The borrowing can be used by the government for the establishment of new manufacturing plants by the producers. Lastly, but not least, it is also helpful in the development of the social overheads. Means the fiscal policy can also be utilized for the development of social overheads like education. It can be used for the development of the schools, establishment of the colleges, establishment of hospitals, charitable institution, and the training institutions for the public of the country. Let's look into that how the fiscal policy can be helpful in maintaining equity in the economy. First, the government must adopt progressive tax system. That is, the government must impose more and heavy taxes on the rich class of the people. And whereas less taxes or more facilities should be given to the poorer class of the society. Second, the government must impose more taxes on the luxury items in comparison to the necessities, because the luxury items can be purchased only by the people, those who belong to the creamy layer of the society, whereas the necessity items are required by everyone, the one who is a part and parcel of the economy. And with the help of this, definitely the gap between the rich and poor can be reduced. Next thing is more expenditure for low income groups. Whatever the extra revenue is generated by the government, out of that, maximum amount of money should be spent by the government for the low income groups. For the low income groups, by providing them employment, by providing them old age pensions, by providing them unemployment allowances, by providing them free ration facilities, by providing them free education, so that the standard of living of the low income groups can be improved. The government can also take up investment in the backward regions, because the various plants which need to be developed in the backward regions, they are quite expensive. As a result, no private entrepreneur or no manufacturer in the private area is interested in the development, in the establishment of industries in the backward region because of no facilities. What the government can do to maintain equity in the country related to the regions, the government can invest huge amount of money in the backward regions by providing the transportation and communication facilities, by providing them the facilities of electricity and regular supply, so that more and more investors, more and more entrepreneurs must be interested in investing in the backward regions. Let's look into the role of fiscal policies in developing countries. First one, to increase employment opportunities. To increase employment opportunities is one of the most important objectives of the fiscal policy of the country. And economic growth can be increased only by providing the employment opportunities. Or we can say indirectly that the employment opportunities can only be provided by economic growth. And economic growth can only be possible by providing the employment opportunities to the people. So, all the instruments of the fiscal policy must work or must aim in the direction of increase in economic growth and employment opportunities. The government must give tax concessions, incentives to the entrepreneurs, to the manufacturers, those who are using the labor-intensive techniques. The government must start those type of projects where the more employment opportunities can be created, like the construction of dams, construction of roads, laying of railway tracks. Deficit financing. It is a process of meeting the deficit between government expenditure and revenue through the creation of new money. It is the easiest way which can be adopted by the government to fill a gap between the revenue and the expenditure. Let's look into the need for deficit financing, or in other words, why we need deficit financing. What is the requirement? What is the need for deficit financing? First, deficit financing is required for fulfilling the requirement of the modern wars. As the modern wars are quite expensive, their equipments as well as the methodology which is required is very expensive. And during the time, it is very difficult for the government to cope up with the expenditure of the war. And that time, deficit financing is the easiest and the simplest way to generate income or generate funds for the government. That's why the government is more dependent on deficit financing at the time of war. Deficit financing is used during the time of depression, as it has been clearly advocated by J.M. Keynes that deficit financing is the easiest and the simplest way to remove depression in the economy, because the depression can be removed in the economy only with the increase of aggregate demand and supply in the economy. And both the things, like aggregate demand and supply, can be increased only by providing more funds in the economy. That can be done only with the help of deficit financing. Next is the economic development. And economic development of a country can be done by the different ways. First, by raising the additional sources. As we all know that deficit financing can work in the underdeveloped countries for raising additional sources, because as we are aware that the underdeveloped countries are not having the sufficient funds for the development of their resources. So they need extra funds for the development, for the purchasing of capital equipments, for the development, for taking out raw materials, so that the economic growth can be there in the country. Let's look into the evil effects of deficit financing, or the negative effects of deficit financing. First, inflationary rise in prices. Due to deficit financing, the circulation of money increases in the economy. And as the circulation of money increases in the economy, the demand of the people increases along with that. But due to the absence of the aggregate supply, increase in aggregate supply in the economy, the prices rise. The prices of the raw materials and the factor inputs also increases. And as the price rises, the cost spiral comes in the picture. As a result, it becomes a continuous process to keep for the increase in the prices. Second, unequal impact of the forced saving. Deficit financing is basically responsible for the forced saving on the people of the economy. And as the forced saving is there on the people of the country, but it is not balanced. The forced saving is not balanced from the side of the government, because the impact or the effect of the forced saving falls more heavily on the people, those who belong to the fixed income group, because they need to save more. Whereas the profiteering class or the profit earner class, they keep on enjoying the profits and reaping the profits. Third, unequal distribution of income. Due to the deficit financing, the income gets distributed in the favor of the rich class of the society, because that is the only class which is a profit earning class of the economy. Whereas the fixed income groups, they are always at loss, because as we know that the deficit financing leads to inflation, and in the situation of inflation, the profit earning class is always at the profit, whereas the fixed income groups always suffer the losses, because their incomes or the source of earning do not increases with the increase in prices. There is a mismatch. There is always a mismatch between the increase in the prices and increase in the income of the fixed income class. Last but not the least, change in the pattern of investment. There is a negative effect on the pattern of investment, because during the deficit financing, as the demand of the consumer items increases in the economy, and the consumers, they also have a lot of money in their hands. As a result, instead of demanding for the necessity items, the people, they start demanding for the luxury items. Same happens with the producers. Producers also show more interest. They take more initiative in investing in the projects which can give them higher profits, and higher profits can be earned by the producers only and only if they invest their money into the projects which can produce the luxury items, because in that area only the profit margin is the highest. So now as we have looked into the evil effects of deficit financing, let's look into the need of the deficit financing in India, that why the deficit financing is required in the Indian scenario. First, financing for the 5-year plans. Whatever the projects, whatever the expenditures we laid down in the 5 year plans in India, their budgets, their expenditure is such a huge amount that if we try to cover up the gap between the revenue and the expenditure with the help of the taxes, we cannot cover up the gap between the expenditure and we cannot cover up the budget of the 5 year plans. So the best option is that the Indian government can easily go for the deficit financing, that is the printing of new currency. Second, increase in public expenditure. Public expenditure has increased in India many folds because as the demand of the people are increasing, the expenditure of the government is also increasing. Government is spending a huge amount of money on giving the dearance allowance to the people. It is spending huge amount of money on giving the social securities to the people. As a result, the expenditure is increasing, and that expenditure cannot be fulfilled, cannot be done with the help of only of the taxes. So the best option is again is the deficit financing. Increase in public expenditure, it is required because Indian government is no more a welfare state. उसकी वजह से क्या हो रहा है कि जैसे जैसे लोगों की डिमांड्स बढ़ती जा रही हैं, पॉपुलेशन बढ़ती जा रही है, तो सरकार का जो खर्चा, सरकार का जो एक्सपेंडिचर है वो भी साथ साथ बढ़ता जा रहा है, क्योंकि सरकार हर तरह के काम देख रही है, चाहे वो पेंशन्स के काम है, चाहे वो अलाउंसेस के काम है, चाहे वो लोगों को हॉस्पिटल्स देने के हैं, चाहे एजुकेशन के लिए, सारे जो एक्सपेंडिचर्स हैं वो गवर्नमेंट को करने पड़ते हैं। और उन एक्सपेंडिचर्स को करने के लिए, उन खर्चों को करने के लिए सरकार के लिए बहुत ज़रूरी है कि वो डेफिसिट फाइनेंसिंग पे डिपेंड करे या उस और नई करेंसी बनाए। Next thing which comes over here, slow increase in the taxes. Indian government is not in a position to increase the taxes up to any extent, to increase the taxes instantly according to the requirement, according to the expenditure. India is basically as a developing country, so we cannot increase the taxes or the rate of taxes up to any extent. So the option which is left with the government is only the deficit financing. That's why the Indian government is more dependent on the deficit financing, because it is the easiest way out. Last is the mobilization of borrowings on a limited scale. The government can borrow from the public or from the institution within the country up to certain limit, because the financially, again the thing will come that the financial position of the Indians is not very good, is not in such a situation that maximum amount of money can be given to the government. That's why the government has to switch over only to the deficit financing to cope up with the expenditures. Thank you.